with our word questions. So this is section 4.4b, and these questions come from previous EQAO release documents. Okay, so we know when we've dealt with these types of questions before from EQAO that they word things a little bit differently than what we're used to, and sometimes it's not straightforward. However, you have the ability, the knowledge, and the skills, the concepts to solve them. So let's look at the first one, and I'm just going to bring up, I think we'll go to purple. Okay, so the equation C equals 20n plus 35 represents the relationship between cost of school volleyball uniforms C in dollars and the number of uniforms ordered N. Okay, so that's the number of uniforms. The uniform company requires that the school order a minimum of 15, but the school has a maximum of 500 to spend on the uniforms. Okay, so that's the information they gave us. It says determine the possible values for N and C in this situation. Show your work. And then it says the possible values for N are. Well, I think that it asks us here for the possible values of N and C. So it's stated here, even though they went and put a line here, I can fill it in for N, but I also want to make sure that I've shown them that I figured it out for C as well, because they did ask it. Show your work means show our calculations. Okay, so we want to have something that we can that they can follow. Okay, so the first thing is I have $600 to spend. Okay, so how many uniforms could I buy with 600? I know I have to buy at least 15 uniforms, okay, because that's what it says, but how many will 600 buy? So what I'm going to do here, this is our cost. That's the maximum that I can spend. So let's find out how many uniforms that works out to. So we have the ability to do that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take their formula and we're going to put 600 equals 20n plus 35. Now we're solving this equation, so we're going to subtract 35 from both sides. When we do that, we get $565 equals 20n. And then we have to divide everything by 20. And I know that that line is in my way. They actually do give you a little bit more room. So I know that that doesn't go evenly. Now, if I could do it in my head, I can, or I can bring up my calculator, which is no problem, and I would go 565 divided by 20 equals 28.25. So that means if I have $600, I could buy 28 uniforms. So the possible values for N, obviously, I could actually write them. So N is between 15 to 28. Okay, now that takes care of N, but I want to know about my C. Okay, what are the possible values for C in this situation? Well, it isn't 600. Okay, because I can't use the full 600. I could figure out how much that cost would be if I did purchase 28. So what I need to do now is I have to substitute this in first and then this one to get my two values for my cost. So again, we take our formula. So we could put if n equals 15. So we can actually figure out how much the cost would be for the minimum amount. So we have 20 times 15, so we're looking at 300 plus 35. So our minimum amount that we could spend, that the cost could be, would be $335. And now if n equals 28, my cost would be 20 times the 28 plus our 35. Oops. Every time I get to close to the end, it doesn't want to write for me. So we have 560, so 560 plus 35. And again, you can use your calculator for some of these questions. So that's going to be $595, okay, which is less than 600, which it needs to. So N is between 15 to 28, and C is between 335, come back here, pen, 335 to 595. Okay, very different kind of question. Did we have the ability to solve it? Yes, we did. Was it straightforward? No, but you could do it. Okay, the next question says, what's the charge? And the first thing that I noticed without reading anything, I have a table of values. So that means I need to know about table of values with partial and direct variations. So the table below represents the linear relationship between cost and repair time at an appliance store. Okay, so this is what it gives us. It says, is this relationship a direct or partial variation? Circle 1, justify your answer. And then it says, determine the initial value of this relationship, show your work. You would think that if they stated this, that it's probably partial, right? Because they're after initial value. But don't take that for granted. It might be that the initial value is 0. Now, things that I do know when I have a table of values, if I can find what 0 is, then, and it's 0 for cost, then I know right away that it is direct, because 0, 0 tells me it's a direct variation. Another way I can tell is if I actually take 205 and divide it by 3, 385 divided by 6, and 505 divided by 8, I could figure out, that would show me that those numbers aren't the same. Okay, so I'm just going to bring up my calculator and I'll just prove it with the first two. So if I take 205 and divide it by, divide it by 3, get back there, 3, and then if I took 385, and I'm just typing everything in incorrectly, 385 divided by 6. Notice those two numbers are different, so I know it's not direct. So just doing that would tell me it wasn't direct. So I'm going to look at relationships. Well, between 8 and 2 is a difference of 2. And I'd have to keep doing that in order to find the spacing. But if I look between 6 and 3, it's going down 3. So if I go down another 3, that would take me to 0. Okay, so if I do another 3, so I'm down to 0. So this is showing my work on the table, and that's fine. So that works good. So I know if I go down by 3s, starting here, I end up figuring out the relationship for 0. So how much does 385 take away 205 equal? So if I can find what that delta y is, and then subtract it, that number from the 205, I would be able to figure out, what the value is when it's 0. So 205 now take away 180 is not going to equal 0, so I know for sure it's partial. So we end up with 25. So it's 25. So is it direct or partial? It's partial. Justify your answer. Well, some of it has to do with the work that we've shown here. Also, we can say what we know about a table of values because when h equals 0, c equals 25, it is partial. It would need to be c equals 0 for this to be direct. Okay, so there's no doubt in their mind that you know the difference between direct and partial variations given a table of value. Next says determine the initial value. Well, we actually did it. It's 25. Show your work. That's our work there. Okay, so that question's actually done. Okay, next one. Oh, next one. Looks like we have a graph. It says, at Lowell High School, the cost to attend special events depends on whether or not a student has purchased a $10 discount card. Option A, the student buys a discount card. The cost is $5 per event. Option B, the student does not buy a discount card. The cost is $7.50 per event. Graph the relationship between total cost, the big word there is total, by the way, and number of events for each option on the grid. Okay, so option one, the person buys a student card. So even if they don't go to any event, it's going to cost them $10. So I'm going to make, so $10. And then every time they go to see an event, it costs them another 5. So one event would cost 15. Two events would cost them 20, and it is a direct, well, it's not a direct, it is a linear relationship. So there we have that, and we're just going to draw a line. And I'm going to make it purple to match the purple. So I'm going through here. Oops, that didn't do what I wanted. Here we go. And now we're going to go up and look at the next part. All right, now let's go graph the other student's option. Okay, option B, the student does not buy a discount card. So its initial cost means that if they go to no event, it costs them nothing. But it costs them $7.50 per event. Okay, so this is going to take us a little bit. So one event's going to cost them $7.50. So roughly there, what would 10 events cost them? Well, $75. So that might be easier to graph. So 75. So here's 70, there would be 75. Okay, so I kind of cheated in some respects because it's hard to do. I suppose go 2 events would cost them 15. Okay, so we have enough here to make us another lovely line, and we'll make this one green to match our green dots. Okay, and I'm slightly off there, something like that. Okay, so the first thing we did is we did graph it. Oh, I don't know if this reminds you of anything, but this looks like that past unit where we graphed 2 lines and the lines intersected. So we've graphed it, so we've done the first part of the question. Oh, there are more. It says, determine the conditions under which a student at Lowell High School should choose each option. Justify your answer. Well, this has to do with where they do intersect. You can see that when we look at this question, that the intersection happens here. So when 4 events occur, it costs the same whether you're student A or student B, right? So that's the first thing that I would write down. And I'm going to type it just because we are going to be actually just writing down exactly what we see there. And I better make it bigger than that so you can see it. So at 4 events, both students pay the same amount. And I'm going to run out of time. Amount. And I'm just going to stop it and finish it. Sorry about that.